Good afternoon, woodwinds. This is Mrs. Cook. In this video, I'm going to show woodwind players how to clean your mouthpieces and head joints. Now, in the past two videos for trumpets and trombones, I've showed them how to give your instrument a bath. With flutes, clarinets, and saxophones, you should never ever give your instrument a bath because instruments with pads have, if you submerge them in water or other things, the pads will actually soak up that water, and then they won't make a seal any longer on your instrument, and you'll have to have it overhauled, which is really expensive. So you don't want to give your instrument a bath. You can get a professional cleaning if you're interested in that. Talk to your band director, talk to me or Mr. Cook about that, and we can tell you if that's a good idea with your instrument or not. And then you would send it away to the music store and they can do that for you. But in this video, I'm just going to show you how to clean your mouthpiece because that's something that you can do at home. I hope you enjoy it. The first thing I'd like to talk about that pertains to all woodwind players is every woodwind player swabs out their instrument. And a lot of times you have, flutes might have an old t-shirt or a handkerchief on a rod like this. Clarinets and saxophones often have a swab like this with a cloth on a string. And those should be washed a couple times a year. It just depends on what material you have. If you have just a handkerchief or a piece of cotton t-shirt, you can just throw that in the washing machine like with your regular clothes and in the dryer, and it's fine. If you have a swab that has a string on it like this, I wouldn't advise putting it in your washing machine because you don't want that string to get all tangled up in your washing machine and cause problems. I would hand wash that in regular detergent, and your parents should kind of guide you through that process. If you have a silk swab, then I would also hand wash that. I wouldn't put that in your regular laundry. Maybe use some Woolite. Again, consult with your parents on how to wash something like that. But those are things that you can, you want to keep those clean and laundered at least a couple times a year, maybe even more often than that if you've been sick. Okay, so we're here and we're going to start with the flute head joint. Now that's the only part that I'm going to show you how to clean in this video. Remember, again, you should not clean the rest of your flute with anything with pads. You should just kind of leave it alone. Okay, so we're with the head joint, and what I'm going to use to clean that is I have an old cloth that's clean, and then I have rubbing alcohol. Now you want to make sure that you use rubbing alcohol and not any other type of cleaner. It's not a good thing to kind of deviate and go out on your own and say, oh, well, I have this cleaner, this could work, because you don't want to use anything that might take the finish off of your flute. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of rubbing alcohol and put it on my cloth like that. And then I'm going to gently rub the lip plate of the flute. And the key word is gently. You don't want to get super aggressive about cleaning that because you don't want to take off any finish. Just gently rub it and it should be good. Now to get inside the hole right there, I'm going to use a Q-tip. So I'm going to dip my Q-tip in the rubbing alcohol. And I can get inside of that hole, kind of down below there. You can dip it a couple times and get it really good inside. And this is always a good thing to do if you've been sick, to clean your head joint at least a couple times a year, but more often if you've been sick, obviously. And I can kind of wipe off the outside a little bit. Again, just don't really scrub at the flute. You just want to be really gently clean. Okay, you can do a little bit in there and it should be good to go. Okay, the next thing I'm going to show you how to clean is your reeds. And you can do this with clarinets or saxophones or any reed. Now, the first thing to remember about reeds is that just like your teachers always told you, never leave your reed on your instrument. because that's the first thing that will really deteriorate your reed quicker, is leaving it on there, because it doesn't get a good chance to dry out, and it can actually trap the moisture underneath, and you can get mold under there, and that's just really, really gross. So you always want to take your reed off every time you play your clarinet or saxophone. So something that's good to do every once in a while, if you have a reed that you really like, is to sanitize it, kind of keep it clean and keep stuff from building up on it. So how you can do that is, I have a little bowl here, and I have some hydrogen peroxide. That's what I'm using to sanitize these reeds. Okay, so I'm gonna pour some over my reed. Let it soak for about 30 seconds. And for the purposes of this video, I'm gonna not do it the full 30 seconds. Okay, so after I've done that, let it soak really good. You wanna rinse off that hydrogen peroxide. It's relatively safe, but obviously hydrogen peroxide is not gonna taste very good. So I'm gonna rinse that off super well. Kind of give it a rub with my fingers to get any last little bits of stuff on there off of it. And that's all you have to do. Now just set it out to dry. You don't want to put your reed soaking wet back into your case and then close it. Just set it out to dry and you're... Okay, the next thing I'm going to show you how to do is how to clean a saxophone or a clarinet mouthpiece. Now the saxophone mouthpiece is pretty easy because it doesn't have the cork on it. So all you got to do is, I have a lot of your care kits came with a mouthpiece brush or similar brush like this. I'm going to get that brush wet with some warm water. I can run some water in that, kind of let it down. I'm going to put a little bit of dish soap on that. And any brand dish soap will be just fine. And then I'm going to put my brush inside there to get the inside of my mouthpiece clean. A lot of times there's just stuff that builds up from your mouth blowing in the instrument, little food particles or whatever you've eaten that day. So rinse that out. Okay. Then I have an old toothbrush that I no longer use on teeth that I kind of save for when I clean instruments. I'm going to wet that down. Put a little bit of dish soap on there. Then I can scrub the top. Kind of scrub the outside. See, if you didn't have one of those brushes that I used in the first part like this, you could even use a small toothbrush or a baby toothbrush, and that would probably do the job. So that's really all there is to it for a saxophone mouthpiece. That's pretty easy. I'm just going to set that over to dry. Now when you're doing your mouthpieces for saxophones and clarinets, make sure you always have a really good grip on them. Sometimes when you're giving them a bath, they get a little slippery and they can slip out of your hand and drop on the floor and get a chip on it. And if you chip your mouthpiece, it's not going to be any good anymore, and you have to get a new one. So I'm going to set it over here carefully to dry. Okay, clarinet mouthpiece. Now this one you have to pay a little bit more attention to, because on the bottom of the clarinet mouthpiece, you have some of that cork. And you really don't want to get that soaking wet like I was doing with the saxophone mouthpiece. A little bit of water that you wipe off immediately is okay, but to let that just soak in water is not good for the cork, and it can make the cork actually come off, and you don't want that. So when I'm doing this, I'm gonna try to avoid getting it wet, but it'll probably get a little bit wet. Okay, and then I've put soap again on my brush. or my toothbrush. I'm gonna run it inside like that. See, I'm getting the cork just a little bit wet, but you'll see that it's not gonna be wet for long. Toothbrush, again, I can use that for the outside. Scrub right there. I'm gonna scrub the top. Now, if you have a mouthpiece patch, your mouthpiece patch might come off while you're doing that, but they don't cost a whole lot. So, and you just have to do this every once in a while. So now I'm gonna rinse this off with warm water. Okay. All right, now because it's got that cork on there, I wanna get it dry like right away. I don't wanna let that sit and get wet. And I'm gonna dry it off. And as soon as that dries out inside, you're good to go again. And that's all there is to it. Thank you very much for watching.